everybody. Welcome to Unfiltered. I'm Rob Duvall, and I have two local councilors here today. Actually, they're regional councilors, so thanks very much, guys, for being here. I have Colin Best. He is the regional councilor of Ward 1, right?
Yep.
Ward 1. I had to get the numbers right because it had changed. And we have, of course, the regional councilor, Zeeshan Hamid, and he is the regional councilor for Ward 4. So thanks, guys, for being here. We have a really interesting topic tonight. The topic, of course, that we're dealing with is high rises. This is a hot button topic. Anyone that's been on Milton Talk or Facebook or anything like that has seen the ridiculous amount of people losing their minds. I'll start the conversation first because I can't believe the amount of misinformation. I said before the show, I think everyone's getting dumber, and I believe that. Not for any reason that it's their fault. I think actually we're seeing the result of people not caring about civics now as they're getting into their late 20s, early 30s, and they're just going nuts thinking that we have a lot of power. And what they're not understanding, and I've told my kids the same thing, is feds outrank provincial, provincial outranks regional, and regional outranks municipal, and we're basically the lowest part of that tree. So saying that, you know, I think it comes down to, I'll make it a little calmer. If you're for or against, and the reason I had both of you on here is one voted for, one voted against. I think it's still, though, I think it's the right thing to say we don't want over-intensification. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is what can we do about it? And maybe you have both two completely different views on how you think it should be dealt with. So Colin, I'm going to start with you, and you can kind of tell us where your thoughts are on all these high rises going in, and you know, is it just that you didn't want that one particular build, or you don't want all the builds until other things are done? I'll let you run with it.
Well, as anyone can watch their webcast of the town council meetings, is my problem with it is the design, not the density, because you can have a higher density without a high rise. And actually, there's a number of 6-story buildings in town that basically have higher densities than some of the taller ones. Unfortunately, right now, as you see in Toronto, Mississauga, and Brampton, and now even Oakville, developers are looking at basically very tall, slender buildings, which is a difference from the 80s and 90s, where they basically have, you know, flat, low-level ones. My concern is connecting with the community. A lot of these buildings are not connecting where there should be, and the one that basically the Briarwood application we had 2 weeks ago, and my concerns there were, you know, I was not there to defeat it. I actually approved the amount of density there. It's just the design and the lack of commercial space on it, because every other development that council's approved has had commercial and office space and retail. We're going to have 1,100 people on 8 acres with no commercial. They'll have to walk across 8 lanes of traffic to get a jug of milk. So that's a concern there, that basically if you have something that, you know, you try and combine it, because it is a mixed use node. You look at the town plan, and that's a concern there. There's other issues there, but we can debate the rest of them.
Yeah. And I said that before. I'm kind of lucky where I am because we have the Rabbit, you know, we have the pizza place, and I drop off my dry cleaning. It's just a very small plaza, but there's enough stuff there where I can kind of get everything done. And I was always surprised by that. The reason when I grew up in Toronto, I mean, there was a corner store everywhere. Like, and it wasn't that I was in the downtown core. I was in East York. It wasn't that downtown core-ish. It was basically where everybody lived in the Leaside area. But it was, you could still get to a corner store. There was always that Max Milk in there, or, you know, at the time it was Becker's. I'm showing my age now, but it was Becker's at the time, and you just go and you get your stuff. So Zeeshan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I actually agree with Colin, and I think most people in Milton would agree with Colin. The issue wasn't what we want to see, because Colin's 100% correct. We want to see more mixed-use development. We want to see development done in a more sensible way that's compatible to surrounding areas. And I've written about it a lot. I've traveled a lot, as you know, more than anybody else. I would love to see how some European cities, or even Montreal, other places, handle density, where we're able to achieve density without going too tall, and they have consistent height, which looks aesthetically pleasing and looks better. The real issue is, what authority do we actually have? And that's where the disagreement is, because in Ontario, unfortunately, unlike everywhere else, unlike every other province in Canada, local municipalities don't really have a whole lot of authority and power, because we have this OMB. I mean, it's LPAT, but I'm going to call it OMB because OMB rules are brought back now, and there's no local planning. OMB rules do not look at local planning.
That's right.
So I refuse to call it LPAT, but yeah.
I don't know why they didn't abolish the whole thing when they had the chance. And this has been something, though, that's been going on for decades. This isn't anything new. You know, it's easy for everyone to hate on Doug Ford. I don't like the fact that he kind of said, let's put it back to OMB, because at least LPAT, there was a little bit more authority from our side to make some planning decisions. But it was also a lot of smoke and mirrors. I think we'll agree. Like when I went to AMO last year, they actually didn't know anything about LPAT yet, and those were the people talking about LPAT. And it was like, here's your old boss, meet the new boss. It didn't change. It was a lot of smoke and mirrors. So from that standpoint, I agree totally with what you're saying. My problem is that people, I really do believe, think that we can just say no and it doesn't happen. And that has driven me nuts from day one. They really don't understand that. And then, of course, you guys are all to blame. You know, whether you're for or against, it doesn't matter. They just turn around and say, well, you know, you should have done this, you should have done that. It's like, but you don't understand. The way I always looked at OMB or LPAT was basically like playing poker. You start with your cards, and for every single thing that the developer says, we've done this, they take one of your face cards away. And you're left with 2s and 3s, and you're supposed to bet with that. You can't bet with 2s and 3s. You're gonna lose.
Absolutely.
So that's always my worry. Look at what happened with, you know, as you said, with what happened with Burlington, and they've spent, I'm just gonna think, millions of dollars at this point. But you know, I think you were saying before that they've run into some trouble because they wanted it much lower, and then when they went to the OMB, all of a sudden it jacked right up.
Yeah, Burlington had an application where the council turned it down. The staff was actually against it as well because the official plan called for 4 stories. Council said they'd be okay with 4 to 8. OMB came back with 26. The developer wanted 28. So it's a really unfair system where local communities are not allowed to decide how they want to grow. And as Colin knows, we're actually exceeding all density and growth targets. We're growing faster than we're supposed to grow. We're denser than we need to be. So we don't need height to meet provincial targets. And so for province to come in and say, we're going to tell you what to do, and we're going to have this tribunal of unelected, unaccountable officials, they're going to make a decision without stepping a foot in your community, without knowing what's happening where, that's highly unfair.
They have no accountability.